The moment she walked onto the brightly lit set of the cooking show, the mood shifted, but not in the way it should have. There were no admiring glances, no respectful nods, just a quiet wave of chuckles and raised eyebrows. The other contestants, dressed in sharp chef coats and bold colors, shared side glances that said it all. She didn't look the part. Her apron was plain white, no logo, no embroidery. Her shoes were worn kitchen clogs, and her hair, loosely tied back in a simple bun, looked more functional than fashionable. She smiled softly as she took her station at the far end of the counter, her hands folded politely in front of her. A contestant, 2 stations down, leaned toward the camera crew and whispered, "Is she one of the assistants?" Another one laughed quietly. "Maybe she's the surprise twist. They always bring in a home cook just to make it dramatic." She heard them, but she didn't respond. She simply unrolled her small knife kit, nothing flashy, no Japanese steel or custom handles, just well-maintained tools, used and trusted over time. Her fingers moved with ease, not out of arrogance, but habit. Years of repetition in kitchens where no one was watching. The host walked in with exaggerated flair, greeting the cameras and audience before introducing the judges, celebrity chefs with booming voices and sharp tongues. As each contestant gave their introductions, rattling off their restaurant affiliations and culinary schools, the woman remained quiet until the host gestured to her. "And you? Tell us where you cook." She offered a polite nod, mostly from home now. There was a beat of awkward silence, followed by a chuckle from the host. "Ah, we've got ourselves a true underdog. Let's see if simplicity can survive this kitchen." The crowd laughed. A few contestants smirked. But she just smiled again, because what no one there knew, what no one had even bothered to ask, was that this simple woman once ran a kitchen that earned a Michelin star, and tonight they would all find out, the hard way. The challenge was announced with all the flair of television drama. Create a signature dish in under 60 minutes using surprise ingredients from the black box. Contestants dashed forward, pulling out exotic proteins, rare vegetables, and bold spices. Cameras swiveled to capture the energy, the chaos, the fire of competition.
She waited.
Not out of hesitation, but because she already knew. She didn't need the rush. She needed the moment. When her turn came, she lifted the lid with calm hands and found lamb shoulder, fennel, pomegranate, and spiced yogurt. Her lips barely moved as she murmured, "Perfect." While others began furiously chopping, sizzling, and shouting over blenders and boiling pots, she moved like water. Efficient, graceful, unbothered. Her hands did the talking, cleaning the meat with delicate speed, marinating it with a balance that only instinct and deep training could teach. One of the contestants sneered from the next station. "You might want to pick up the pace, Grandma. This isn't Sunday supper." She looked over and gave a small, serene nod. "It's not." She placed her lamb in a small cast-iron skillet, searing it evenly before letting it braise with caramelized fennel and garlic. Then she began assembling a delicate puree with roasted pomegranate seeds and preserved lemon. Her movements were quiet but layered, with something the others didn't recognize. Confidence without noise. The judges made rounds, pausing at every station to grill the contestants. Some stumbled through explanations full of culinary jargon. Others tried to charm their way through flawed techniques. When they arrived at her station, one of the judges leaned in with a smirk. "You look calm. Too calm. That's either a very bad sign or a very dangerous one." She looked up. "I've done this before." "Oh?" he asked, amused. "Where?" She simply replied, "Paris, a long time ago." They moved on, half impressed, half skeptical. But she didn't care what they thought. She wasn't here to prove anything. She was here to cook. And with each passing minute, the kitchen began to quiet. Not from direction, but from something else. The air around her dish started drawing attention. The aromas, the precision, the restraint. And people began to notice. She wasn't behind. She was ahead. As the clock ticked down to the final 30 minutes, the energy in the kitchen grew sharper. Contestants were scrambling, burnt sauces were being remade, garnishes were thrown out, and pans clattered with panic. But she remained steady, turning her lamb with patience, basting it slowly with a reduction of pomegranate and pan juices that shimmered like rubies.
One of the camera crew zoomed in, catching the unexpected elegance of her plating process. She wasn't stacking food in overcomplicated towers or splashing paint-like smears across the dish. No, her work was intentional. She laid each element with balance, letting the colors and textures speak. The warm char of the lamb, the soft golden fennel, the swirl of creamy yogurt tinged with lemon zest, all placed with quiet precision.
A producer off camera whispered to another, "She's not playing the game, is she?" "No," the other replied, eyes locked on the monitor. "She's playing a different one." One of the younger contestants tried to strike conversation. "So, you just cook at home now? Like, with kids and all that?" She gave a polite nod. Sometimes with diplomats." The contestant blinked, unsure if she was joking, but there was no time to ask. The final 5-minute countdown began, and contestants were yelling for plating space, bumping elbows, tossing last-minute herbs like they were currency. But her station was calm, wiped clean, her dish already plated, garnished, and resting under the perfect glow of overhead light. She stepped back, removed her apron, and placed it gently on her station. Then she waited. And for the first time that day, the others started glancing her way, not with mockery, but with uncertainty. Their expressions shifted from arrogance to something more cautious. Unease, even curiosity. Because somehow her food looked different. Not louder, not flashier, just right. Measured, honest, complete. A judge passed her station and paused longer than necessary, inhaling the scent rising gently from her plate. There was a beat, a flicker in his eyes that betrayed recognition, like a memory trying to surface. And then he moved on, leaving attention behind like an echo. The host announced, "Hands off, chefs, time's up." The studio erupted in applause, but she didn't cheer. She simply looked at her plate and smiled to herself, because she already knew the outcome. The judging began with drama, as always. Cameras tightened on every grimace, every slow chew, every smirk of disapproval. Dishes were met with raised eyebrows and polite phrases that said more than they meant. Interesting balance, or bold choice, or worse, you took a risk. Contestants waited, stiff with nerves, watching their culinary pride be poked apart like test papers under red pens. Each critique carved a little deeper, especially when they knew the flaws before the judges said them aloud. Undercooked lamb, overseasoned sauce, fussy presentation, a lack of cohesion, the usual mistakes under pressure. When it came time for her dish, there was no flashy announcement. The host paused slightly before calling her name, as if still unsure how to set the tone. And next, we have Nora. Just Nora. No restaurant name, no accolades, no titles.
The judges sat upright as her plate was presented. Silence stretched longer than expected.
One judge leaned in first, slicing through the lamb, revealing a perfect, glistening pink center. The second judge swirled her spoon through the yogurt and fennel, giving it a slow, thoughtful taste. Then came the first bite. Silence, followed by the slow raising of brows. The judge, with the sternest reputation, set down his fork, leaned back slightly, and simply said, "This is exceptional." Another leaned in, frowning, not in critique, but concentration. "This flavor balance. This is not beginner's work. This is someone who understands restraint, who's been trained, who's led." The final judge looked up, brow furrowed. "Where did you say you cooked again?" She answered softly, "I didn't." The host jumped in, sensing the tension shift. "Well, it seems you've impressed our judges more than a few fine dining veterans tonight. Tell us, where did you learn to cook like this?" She paused, then said, "La Maison du Figuier." The room fell silent. One of the judges actually choked on his water. La Maison? In Paris? He asked. She nodded. Yes, I was executive chef there, a while ago. That name wasn't just a restaurant. It was a culinary legend, Michelin starred. The kind of kitchen where only the elite trained, where food critics fought for reservations 6 months in advance. The other contestants looked stunned. Their posturing collapsed in an instant. The host stammered. "Why didn't you say that earlier?" She smiled, a little sad, a little proud. Because it shouldn't have mattered. And in that moment, every whisper, every chuckle, every dismissal turned into a heavy silence. She hadn't just passed their test. She had rewritten the rules of the room. After the judging wrapped, the set emptied slowly. Contestants lingered behind, some pretending to check their gear, others just unsure how to face her now that the truth had landed. The ones who had laughed the loudest earlier were the quietest now, their eyes darting toward her, hoping maybe she didn't remember their words, or worse, that she did. She was standing near the back, helping a production assistant reset a prep station, sleeves rolled up, wiping a counter she hadn't even used. That was just her nature. Quiet, thoughtful, present. Not looking for applause, just finishing what she started. One of the younger contestants finally approached her, twisting his chef's towel in his hands. Why'd you come here?" he asked, not rudely, but with the kind of confusion that only comes from being humbled. "If you were already that good, why bother with a show like this?" She glanced at him, then shrugged lightly. "Because people forget, and sometimes you need to remind yourself, not with trophies, with fire, with knives, with your hands in the work." He nodded, slowly. "They'll never forget you now." She smiled, gently. They were never supposed to. Elsewhere on set, a producer frantically tapped away on a phone. Calls were being made. A PR team was already rewriting the show's teaser for next week. Instead of "Home Cook Surprises the Pros," the new tagline would read, "Michelin Star Mystery, the woman who fooled everyone." But none of that mattered to her. As she walked toward the studio exit, one of the judges stepped into her path. Not with arrogance, but something like reverence. "I dined at your restaurant once," he said softly. "You served this delicate sea bass with citrus foam and black garlic puree. I've never forgotten it." She looked at him, eyes kind. "I remember that night. You were with your daughter." She didn't look back at the building, the lights, the people scrambling to understand who she was. She didn't need to. Because the kitchen, the real kitchen, the one she carried in her hands, in her memory, in her spirit, had always been with her. And tonight, without a single shout, she had reminded the world what real mastery looks like. Word of her performance spread faster than the network expected. By morning, a short behind-the-scenes clip showing her calm demeanor, her flawless plating, and the stunned judges had already gone viral. Not because it was edited for drama, but because it wasn't. There was no manufactured tension, no screaming matches or teary confessions. Just a quiet woman, once mocked, now remembered. Comments flooded in. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. That's how you carry history, with grace. A Michelin star in silence is louder than 1,000 reality TV egos. The episode hadn't even aired yet, but viewers already wanted more. Articles popped up. The unknown chef who stole the spotlight. The woman who cooked like a ghost from the past. Food critics weighed in, confirming her past in Paris, her years in kitchens others only dreamed of, and the reason she'd disappeared. She had stepped away by choice, not failure. Meanwhile, she went about her life unchanged. No new Instagram profile, no press tour. She didn't need the attention. She didn't crave validation. She had only stepped into that studio to cook, to remind herself of the rhythm, the heat, the quiet thrill of building something beautiful from raw elements. And that she did. The producers begged her a return for the finals. She politely declined. She didn't need a trophy. She had something better. Peace. But the show went on, and her legacy lingered in every corner of that studio. The kitchen staff whispered about her techniques. Contestants adjusted their approach. Less flair, more flavor. Judges referenced her dish whenever something was too loud, too forced. "It's not about being seen," one judge said during a later episode. "Remember Nora," and that became her legacy. Not the Michelin star, not the reveal, not even the viral moment, but the way she carried herself when no one believed she belonged.
Because greatness doesn't always arrive with noise.
Sometimes it waits quietly, until the fire's lit.